Hey everybody, we've got we've been John and I have been testing about the last 30 minutes, and we have a little bit of challenging situations because he doesn't have very good Wi-Fi. So what we want to do is I've got him on the phone, and so we want to see if you guys can hear him with my mic. So here in a second, I'm gonna have him say hello and stuff, and if I could get either a thumbs up if you guys can hear him, or a thumbs down if it is if it just isn't going to work. So, and I'll say, so we'll let him talk, and then I'll say, okay, thumbs up or thumbs down. So with that, we're going to let Johnny talk.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm coming to you from sunny Lyman, Colorado, and from the cab of my truck. And I'm happy to be here.
All right.
I am.
Okay. What? So Matthew says he can hear you. How about you, Linda? Oh. Do you think it's good too? Can you hear Johnny? Could you hear Johnny? Okay, we can hear. Yeah, they can hear you. Awesome. All right. Well, if anytime you guys can't hear him, make sure that you speak up, okay? And so that we make sure that you guys don't miss any of the content that we created for you guys tonight. All right. And
please don't forget your notebooks. Write down any questions for later, any comments, any ideas, and don't forget to like and subscribe, share. For anyone you think you need to hear the message, we certainly appreciate you guys. Thank you. Take it away, Shannon.
All right. Thank you, kind sir. So welcome to Deservingly You. As always, this is that space where we talk honestly about what it takes to rebuild after systems of control, and to teach ourselves how to live a self-led life. And just as a reminder, I'm Shannon Avery Briggs. I'm a certified transformational resilience coach. I'm co-founder of Luminous Connections and the Exit Generation movement. And as we step into this space, we just want to remind everybody this is a coaching environment. And so we're not psychologists, we're not therapists. We actually focus on awareness, on clarity, and also moving forward. And tonight, tonight we're shifting into something that catches a lot of people off guard. The last 2 weeks, we actually talked about fear, about how to recognize it, and also some of the things that we can do, and how it might stack up, and how it shows up, and why it can actually feel so intense after we leave a high controlled environment. So this week is a little bit different. This is going to be talking about what can happen after you start moving forward, because a lot of people experience this moment where they actually make the change, they start creating that distance, they start making different choices and move forward differently, and then something ends up pulling at them. And the question might become, why do I suddenly feel like going back? And why does this feel so convincing? What's happening right now? And so what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to break down what we call the pullback effect, and why it happens, and why it feels so real, and how to recognize what actually is driving us in that moment.
And I'm John Briggs, certified transformational resilience coach, and also the co-founder of Luminous Connections. And for me, this part was confusing for a while, okay? Because you think that once you make that decision, of stepping away, that things are just going to magically become more clear. But that's not always the case, right? You know, sometimes it feels like you're moving forward, and then something in you starts pulling you back, and those thoughts come in, the memories, the second guessing, and it can feel like you're losing your footing, right? A little bit there. And what we've learned, and what we're going to walk through tonight, is that this doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. It means something is happening underneath the surface. Okay, that you just haven't been taught how to recognize it yet, and to realize what's actually happening.
Yep. So if you're here live, go ahead and type live in the chat. We want to be able to see who all's here. And if you're catching the replay, type replay so that we know that you've been here and you've watched it. And if this conversation or conversations like this matter to you, and you know somebody that might be able to benefit from it, please hit that like, subscribe, and share, and notify also so that you don't miss what's coming next. So let's get into this. So,
all right, okay. Before we go any further, I want to set the space, right, and the tone for tonight, because how you show up in a conversation like this matters just as much as what we as the topic that we're gonna get into here.
Yeah, and so here's what can help us support the space is to have agreements among everybody who is here. We want to have this space for reflection and not for reacting. So we ask you to focus on what the topic is, focus on your experience, and notice what's happening within you, and remember to be curious over judgment, and be aware over that criticism.
And we just like to bring awareness to that, because these conversations like this can easily turn outward, okay? Trying to explain things, trying to make sense of other people, okay? Or going down old paths. That's not what we're doing here, okay? We're not here to debate or rework the past. We're here to understand what's happening now, so you can move forward with more clarity and intention, purpose.
Yep. So, so as you're here with us, we encourage you to use the chat to share ideas like that, and to share what stands out to you, what may feel familiar, what you're noticing in yourself. Especially if you felt that pull that we're talking about tonight. When we do things like this, we can learn from each other in a forward motion, instead of being either staying stuck or being even pulled back into the past.
And if you don't have to share to be a part of this. You can listen, just reflect on your own plans. We definitely encourage you to put it in the chat, because that's how this becomes active, instead of just something that you hear. We can all learn from each other. Kind of have those aha moments,
Yeah. And this is about you. When you're coming to these, this is about you building on you, not where you've been, but where you're meeting yourself tonight, right now. So now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing tonight, because this isn't just about understanding the pullback. It's actually about being able to recognize it when it's happening in the real time. And for most people, that can be a missing piece. Not awareness after the fact, but actually clarity in that moment.
Yeah, because when it's happening, it doesn't feel like a pattern. It feels personal. Okay? It may feel like maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I should rethink this. Maybe going back would just be easier. Just take the stress off. And that's what makes it so convincing.
Yeah. So by the time we're done tonight, you're going to be able to see a few more things clearly. First, why that pull shows up in the first place, because this isn't random. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. Second, you'll start to recognize what's actually driving this. Is this fear trying to protect you, or is this grief asking for something different? And that distinction really matters more than what most people realize.
Yeah, because those two, they feel very different, but in the moment, they look the same. And if you don't know the difference, you might react the same way to both.
And so then the last piece for tonight, we're going to give you a way to respond to that moment that doesn't come from reaction. And the other thing too is we're not pushing this away. We're not overthinking it, but we actually want to learn how to stay grounded while it's happening.
So instead of feeling pulled around by it, you can start to understand it. what's going on.
Yep. So how does that sound tonight? Everybody put thumbs up in the chat if you like the direction that we're going tonight. So one of the things that really can help us right away too is understanding that this pullback doesn't necessarily happen just once. It can show up in different phases of the process. And if you don't know that, that can become confusing. So like something is going wrong when really you're just in a different part of that overall experience of those phases.
Yeah. And this is where a lot of people start second guessing themselves, because they think, I already made the decision. Why am I feeling this all over again? And the answer is you're not going backwards. It's just the way that you're moving through it and processing.
Yeah. So let's take a look at two different places where this tends to show up the most. That first phase is when you're starting to see things more clearly. And this is where fear has a tendency to get louder. We talked about that the last couple of weeks. So now we're letting you kind of even see where it's showing up in the overall journey, because those early stages of clarity can bring up a level of uncertainty. Now, I know that sounds a little bit strange, but hear me out. So you start noticing things and you start questioning things, and then your system actually kicks in and is trying to figure out how to feel safe again.
Right. Okay. So the pull here, it isn't random. It's your system trying to protect you, trying to shut it down.
Yeah. And then there's another phase, that phase 2, where you've already created some distance. And now it's no longer about fear as much, but we start feeling that loss. We feel the absence and we feel that space. And so that pull starts to feel even different.
Yeah. This is where it's not about safety anymore. It's about relief, right? So even though the pull can feel similar, what's driving it underneath is just not the same. And that's what we're going to start getting into next year.
Yep. So we point this, we point this out on a visual, because if you can see it and understand where you're at, you can, when that question comes up, you're not pulled away by it as much. So when that question of what's wrong with me comes up, you'll know that that's not the case. There's nothing wrong with you if you know that this is part of the journey. Because when people actually start understanding where they are, they'll stop asking that question. So we want to take a step back here for a minute. And I want you to think about a moment where you actually had done that hard thing. You may have walked away, and you might have created that distance. And or maybe you said something that you'd been holding in for a long time, and you finally had the courage to say it. Or maybe you chose yourself in a way that you hadn't before. And at first there might be this sense of relief, like, okay, I did it.
Yeah, and then there's almost this moment of quiet and this stillness, like things just settle for a while. Then something starts to happen. It's subtle at first, and your attention it goes back to them. Okay, your thumb you're holding your phone in your hand. Your thumb is hovering over their name. Should I reach out? Should I call? Should I text? Memories start coming in, and your mind it starts to try and make sense of the step that you just took and the decisions that you made.
Yeah. And then thoughts start showing up. Well, maybe the situation that I left wasn't that bad, or maybe I overreacted. And here's the part that that it gets people, because that relief can show up again. But this time, the way that the relief sounds, it sounds like going back.
Yeah, it feels like a good idea. That's the confusing part, because the relief shows up before anything actually changes.
Yeah, that moment right there, that's that pull. And for a lot of people, this is where things start getting confusing, because it doesn't show up just as a thought. It also combines a feeling with it.
And it can feel really real, like something just shifted, right, inside you. So before we even ask what to do, we have to understand what's going on first. What does this actually feel like when you're in it, is the question.
So once you start to recognize that moment, that next thing that matters is, like John said, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? Because this isn't just a thought that shows up. It's not just a thought. It's actually something that shows up in your body and in your emotions and how you start relating to everything around you.
And for a lot of people, this part really feels familiar, even if they've never had words for it, right, before, or be able to put it into context. It can feel like a sense of emptiness, like something just dropped out from under you. You start second guessing everything, not just the decision, but yourself. And at the same time, there's this pull toward connection again. You know, you're missing people, family, missing what felt familiar, what is familiar. It's a mess. Yeah.
So I'd love to see if this is relating to you guys in the chat. And so let us know if this sounds familiar to you. This is where too it gets confusing, because part of you knows why you left, but then the other part of you just wants relief. And so you start thinking, well, maybe I should go back. Maybe it would just be easier. But here's a really important part to understand. Once again, this feels real.
And it feels convincing.
And that's
Absolutely.
why, yeah. And that's why we have to really take a step back and slow down and start understanding what's the driving part underneath of it. So this isn't just something that I understand now. It's something that I lived through. And when I look back, I can see these moments really clearly. But at that time, I didn't understand what was happening. So many of you who have gotten to know me know that I went through a situation of domestic violence. And there was a time where we had separated and I had gone to see Pete. Now, Pete was my counselor, my therapist that had helped me through that difficult time. And I remember going into his office and I was so excited because we had, my ex and I had talked the night before and we had decided that we were getting back together. And in my mind, I felt like everything was going to work. And I had this vision of what that could be again. But what I didn't see then was what was actually driving it. It wasn't that clarity that I assumed I had. It actually was fear. I was afraid of being alone. And I was afraid of raising 2 kids by myself. And in domestic violence, they talk about the cycle of violence. And at that moment, it was that honeymoon stage. And so that honeymoon stage brought on that feeling that ended up blurring everything. And then another situation, when I was in here talking to Pete, my counselor, he was calm. He sat there and calmly listened to me. And then he said to me, go ahead and go back. But he said, you're going to be right back where you were here in a year. Except this time he's going to have the kids because he knows how the system works. And he's not going to make the mistakes that he did this time. Or he's going to follow through on what you said. And you won't make it out of this alive. He will follow through on what he said he was going to do to you. And that was the moment that I never looked back again.
Yeah, that kind of clarity, it doesn't come from emotion. It cuts through it.
Yeah. There was another moment too in my past when Pete died. Pete made such an impact on my life, and losing him was unbelievably difficult. And that was completely different. I, at the time, was out of the organization, but I couldn't imagine ever not speaking to him again, never seeing him again, because he made such an impact on my life. And that's where something else ended up pulling at me. Now, this time it wasn't fear, it was grief. And that belief system that so many of us are familiar with, that offered something that felt like relief, that hope of seeing him again, and hope that things could be restored. And so that pulled me back. I went back, not because I was aligned with where I was going, but because the loss felt so real.
And grief doesn't argue. It just wants the pain to end, not right now.
Yeah. But then, so grief pulled me back in. But by the time that John and I left for good, this was different. That doesn't mean that the emotions weren't there. They were still there. I still had emotions of fear and grief, but they didn't have the same authority this time, because by then my self-trust had grown and my values really mattered to me. And the other thing, my reputation, who I was choosing to be, that mattered to me. And so I wasn't willing to align myself with something that didn't match that. So the pull was still there. The fear was still real, and the grief was still real, but something had changed. That self-trust that I had built up in myself was a lot stronger than the pull. So when I look back at these 3 moments of my life, I didn't fully understand what was happening at the time, but now I can see it. And I think that the part that matters the most is that you can't go, it's not that you can't go back. Like if you decide to go back into the situation, it's actually, if you do, it's a decision instead of being driven by an emotion of like fear or being driven by grief. Those moments are really powerful when we experience that, but they don't always tell us the truth.
That's the shift. It's the difference between reacting and actually making mindful choices.
And that's what Pete gave me in that moment, in that when I went into his office. He didn't force me and he didn't tell me what to do. But what he did do was he gave me the clarity to see that what I was actually choosing. And so that's what we want to do, and what we want to build here is to help you to build that self-trust and have the ability to choose your direction instead of being pulled into it. So I'd love to know if this is landing with people, if it's making sense, and if you can see that. So we want to take a look too at these 2 types of pullbacks that we were talking about. And if you can tell the difference between them, once you can, then everything can start to shift.
Because in the moment, they feel almost identical. Same thought of maybe I should go back, but what's underneath that thought isn't the same.
Yeah, that first one, like we said, is fear. Now, fear-based pullback is about safety. And what it sounds like is, what if I'm wrong? What if I lose everything? I need to fix this right now. So it comes with that urgency. And often with this type of pullback, guilt is going to show up as well. It's going to try to get you back into what feels safe.
And the second one you can see there is grief. Grief-based pullback there is about loss. like is like, I miss them. I feel alone. I just want this to end right now. Stop. It doesn't feel as urgent, but it feels heavy. And it's not trying to fix something. It's trying to hold on to something.
So both of these can end up leading you to the same place, but they're not asking for that same response. So let's take a look at that first one, that first phase, that fear one, a little bit deeper, because this is the one that is most common when people get pulled back and they don't recognize it for what it is. Now, it doesn't show up. It doesn't show up at your doorstep and have a fear label on it. It's going to show up as logic. It's going to show up as a responsibility, or it may show up as, maybe I need to rethink this.
Yeah, right. And that's what makes it so convincing, because when you're right in the thick of it, it doesn't feel like you're reacting. It feels like you're trying to make better choices, better decisions. Like you're being careful, right? Like you're trying to avoid making any big mistakes. That's where people start to question themselves, okay? Not because something actually changed, but because the pressure just got more intense.
And louder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so remember how a couple weeks ago we talked about how fear can get really loud. And, because it ends up getting stacked, especially when we're going through this. So what's underneath that pressure is uncertainty. The other thing is your identity is shifting and your environment has changed. And the structure that you used to rely on isn't there anymore. And so your nervous system doesn't like that at all. So it's going to try to solve it the fastest way that it knows how.
That's why it feels so urgent, right? It's not just a thought. It feels like something you need to fix right now. Like you don't do something, this is going to get worse. And urgency has a way of making things feel true, right? Even when they're not.
And so this is where that distortion comes in. Our fear starts telling us going back will make this better. And if you reverse the decision, you're going to feel safe again. But that's not the truth.
Yeah, what's actually going on, or what it's actually doing, is offering you relief, okay? Some sort of relief in the moment, not resolution. And it's telling you, do this, and the discomfort will go away. But the reason the discomfort showed up in the first place, it hasn't changed. So you're not solving anything. You're stepping out of the tension in the moment.
And all of that comes with a cost. Is every time that you go back from that place, you're sending yourself a message. You're telling yourself that your decisions can't be trusted. And when it gets uncomfortable, you'll go ahead and retreat just to feel safe again. And over time, what ends up happening then is it erodes something that is very important to all of us. But for you personally, it erodes that self-trust that you're building.
Yeah, indeed. And it also slows everything down, because instead of building forward, you keep resetting. And you don't get to see what would have happened if you just stayed the course and trusted yourself.
Yep. So instead of trying to eliminate the feeling, that shift becomes, how do I respond in a way that's going to protect where I'm going? Not what feels easier right now, but what actually supports that person that I'm becoming.
Yeah, because fear isn't trying to guide you forward. It's trying to get you back to what's familiar.
Yeah.
And like I always say, the brain will always gravitate toward what's familiar, whether it's uncomfortable or not. And familiar, you can feel safe even when it's not aligned.
Yep. So now let's look at the other side, because grief-based pullback is different. And this is where people can get confused, because this one feels even more honest. It's not feeling like pressure. Like I was saying with my story, it's the loss.
Right? And it doesn't come in the same way. And there's not that same urgency to fix something. It's more like a weight that shows up. You notice the absence, you notice the quiet, and your mind starts going back to what used to be there.
And this is where you feel it in a different way. Like we talked about, you might miss people and you miss that connection. You might even miss what felt familiar. And sometimes you don't even miss the reality of it. You miss what it meant to you.
Yeah, and it's not always about the situation itself. It's about what it represented. Mm-hmm. Belonging, somewhere, having that worth and that connection, the identity. And when that's gone, the system's trying to make sense of that gap that's there now. Yeah. That empty space.
And this is where people often misinterpret it, because grief can make it feel like going back would actually fix that pain. Like, if you could just reconnect, then you wouldn't feel this way anymore.
And it can feel really true in that moment, but because it seems like the fastest way to stop that feeling, all that heartache, but what it's actually doing is avoiding the process of grieving. It's just suppressing all that.
Yeah. So when you actually respond to that grief that you're experiencing by going back, like John said, you don't process it. And all you have done is paused it. And then over time, that can keep you from building something new, whether it's a new connection, whether it's a new meaning to you, whether it's even your new identity.
Absolutely. And keep you tied to something, not because it's right for you now, but because it's familiar, again, to your system.
So
I like to say that's just why people keep going back. I mean, they'll leave one organization and hop right into another, or leave one relationship and end up with the same person, but a different individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the shift here isn't how do I get rid of the feeling? It's how can I honor what mattered without going back into something that doesn't align?
Yep, because, the grief isn't trying to pull you backward. It's trying to help you process something that actually mattered to you. Something that actually mattered to you, so it's trying to pull you back there. But if you confuse that with direction, you can end up making a decision based on feelings, right? On that feeling, instead of what actually supports you in the long term going forward.
Yeah, so just like fear, grief is a feeling that's real, but it doesn't automatically mean that if we go back that that's the answer. So I'm curious if you guys think in the chat if you can see the differences and how these two show up differently, even though it can make us think it's the same, but they actually have different feels to them if we peel it back and really look at it. So like I said, with when I shared my story, one of the things that Pete did for me that changed everything was that he never took my choice away. So even in that moment, he told me, you can go back. But what he did do was help me to see clearly what that choice actually meant.
That's the big difference there, right? It's not about being told what to do. It's more about understanding what comes with the decision that you're making.
So let's take a look at this directly. You can go back. You can choose that familiarity. You can choose that connection, and you can choose that temporary relief. But there will be a cost.
And it's not always obvious right away either. It doesn't show up all at once. It shows up over time as you look back in hindsight.
And it can start with your self-trust. You stop listening to your own voice again, and your decisions don't feel like they're yours anymore. And then it can creep into your identity itself, and you start shaping yourself around what's expected instead of what's true.
And that's where that internal gap begins to grow between who you are and how you're actually living and carrying that with you. It just takes a tremendous amount of energy.
And that itself is heavy. So then it also, we see this in our relationships. Our relationships, the connection becomes conditional again. And our trust in people gets weaker. And you can start adjusting yourself in order to keep that sense of belonging.
And over time, it's going to impact your future, definitely. Progress will slow down. You start repeating the same old patterns over again, and your world just gets smaller again. And like you mentioned before a minute ago, you start adjusting yourself to maintain belonging, like in that echo chamber. That's what that reminded me of.
Yeah. So this isn't about being told not to go back. It's about seeing it clearly, about what going back actually costs you. Not in that moment of actually going back, but in the future of who you're becoming.
And it's not just about a decision right now. It's a decision about direction, right? The direction of your life and who you're becoming.
Yeah, definitely. So let's put on a little bit different lens. Let's take a look at these two and look at like when it does hit, because like we said, it doesn't come with a badge on it and says, "Hey, I'm fear. I'm here to come." It's not going to announce itself, and they show up. So a better question in that moment is almost like as if fear or guilt, grief was a person. What just walked in? Is this fear or is it grief?
Yeah, almost like which one is coming for a visit right now? Because they both feel strong, but like we said before, they behave in a different way. And if you can recognize which one it is, you stop treating them the same way.
Yeah. So let's take a look at fear. Now, fear is going to come in fast and furious. It's going to spike. It's going to feel urgent. It's going to stack like what we talked about a few weeks ago. And like something needs to be handled like right now. Linda goes, "Hello, I'm fear." Exactly.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Linda posted in the chat. She goes, "Hello, I'm fear."
Right? Tattooed on his forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it doesn't give you space. It pushes, it creates all this pressure. And it might sound like, what if I'm wrong? And I need to fix this now. I feel guilty.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here's the important part. If you don't act on it, fear is actually going to settle. It needs your participation to keep going.
And if you feed it, it's just going to grow, going to expand. If you don't feed it, it fades. So like I've said before, anything that you give your energy to is going to expand. So.
And fear kind of is like that even more so. Because grief ends up moving differently. So grief isn't going to spike the same way that fear does. It actually comes in waves. But with those waves, it feels heavier, and it also tends to return.
Indeed. And it doesn't push you the same way. It sits there, right, with you. And it might sound like, or look like, I miss them. I feel lost. I just want this to stop. This feeling, like it says there.
Yeah. So whereas fear is trying to fix something, grief doesn't. It's not trying to fix something. It wants to hold on to something that mattered. So many people will leave and not think that part of our life mattered, but it did. And we're going to talk about that piece in a future episode. So hold on to, we will come back to that. We're not going to just abandon that thought, but it is really important. John kind of touched on it a little bit when we had our episode on grief, when we talked about that. And so, like I said, we'll revisit that because it does matter. That part of our lives did matter.
And when people are going through these two emotions, they get mixed up because they feel that this feeling can make it seem like going back would be the answer, but it's not the same thing. So fear pushes, and grief will pull you in that direction.
Yeah. So when that pullback shows up, instead of us reacting to it, we can pause and ask ourselves, okay, who's here right now?
And just that question alone, it can create enough space and the ability to choose your response instead of being driven by it.
Yep.
It gives you some self-reflection, to take that pause, take a step back, and just kind of some self-talk.
Yeah. Now, Linda, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Linda had made a comment in the chat too that the fear pullback was for relief. The grief pullback stopped my grief process, and I've become less confident in my own decisions and not trusting others as well. So that definitely, that's what you can experience, definitely.
Just being aware of that is tremendous growth.
Yep. So this is where hopefully everything is coming together, because most people in that moment actually ask the wrong question.
Yeah, and the question that most people do ask is, should I go back?
But what we've learned is that it doesn't help you, because it keeps you stuck in that reaction mode.
Yeah, it pulls you into trying to decide while you're still in the emotion. And when you're in it like that, everything feels convincing. So it's important not to make these especially huge decisions, life-altering decisions, in an emotional or impulsive state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we can switch it. Remember last week we did the flips about, so this is kind of like that. So instead of asking the question, should I go back? A better question that we can ask ourselves is, what's driving this right now? Is it the fear, or is this grief?
Yeah, because now you know the difference. You know how fear can show up, and you know how grief shows up as well. So instead of reacting to the feeling, you can start identifying it in real time as it's happening.
Yeah. And it's going to feel real. The other thing is and valid, but that doesn't always mean that this is automatically aligned with who you are supposed to be.
And, the brain, it can't always evaluate clearly until it first identifies what it's feeling.
Yeah. And so one of the things, if you guys remember that the pieces, so John Mars put on there fear as to the unknown. 2 weeks ago, we talked about fear and we laid out the 4 main common fears that will pop up. And so even as you're experiencing this, if you remember that, and when you do, if you identify the fear, then go back and ask, okay, is this, what type of fear is this? And once you can learn how to name that, those steps to go forward make it become easier. So let's take a look at everything that we just walked through. When that pulse shows up, it's not something that's random.
Yeah, because, for a lot of people, this is something that they've experienced over and over again, but never really had a way to identify it or language to explain what was happening. So it may have felt like second guessing, kind of going in circles, not really being sure what or who to trust.
Yeah. So now hopefully you can see why that pulse shows up in the first place, and that it's also not a sign that something is wrong with you.
Right. And it's either fear trying to protect you or grief trying to hold on to something that mattered deeply. And once you can recognize that, you don't respond the same way anymore. You can notice it, you can pause, take a step back, and you can ask a different question,
Yeah, like
now.
Yeah. So like we said, you can ask, instead of asking, should I go back? You ask instead, what's driving this? And just by asking a simple question like that, it can help bring you back to you instead of not to the fear and not to the grief, but actually bringing it back to you, because you want to be the one that's making your decisions, not having those emotions make the decisions for you.
Or another person.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't want to give any of that away.
Wow.
So now we want to open it up. If something stood out, or if you got a thought or a question, I will put the link in the chat. So if anybody wants to come up, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something real big, just whatever's real for you right now. Remember, we learn from each other.
Yeah.
Like those, like I say, those aha moments. Oh yeah, that sounds familiar. Or I remember that. Yeah. It shifts people's perspective when you hear it from somebody else's viewpoint.
So
Again,
I was. Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, we're kind of dialing my technology here, and we'll get this worked out where I'll be able to have a better angle, in this show. So more consistent. I apologize again. So.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, like always, if you want to keep the conversation going, tomorrow night, we inside the Exit Generation Facebook group, we do a breakout session, a discussion. Oh, Linda decided to join us, so let me.
Of course she did. She heard my heart.
Yes, she did.
Yes, I heard your heart. Okay, so this concept was very familiar to me.
Yeah.
But what you guys brought up tonight was how to look at it after you define it. So what's making me want to go back? Is it, could it be fear? Could it be grief?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it's not real feelings.
Right.
But it's not in our best interest if we do go back.
Right.
And the thing about the fear is it's an attempt to protect myself. So I want to go back home.
Yeah. Right.
Bad relationship, bad family, bad cult. I want to go back home. What feels like home? And so that's a natural thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the grief is natural to happen too. But if you go back, it'll stop the grieving process.
Yeah.
Which the grieving process, even though it sucks to go through it, it is helpful in our healing. So
yes.
Interrupting it might not be in my best interest.
Yeah, it's definitely necessary. And I know some of the people that have watched this and stuff are further along in the journey. But we just felt like this was a really good one to touch on, so that people can recognize what happens.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You said it's a natural process to want those feelings and the fear and the grief, guilt, or whatever to end right now.
Right.
But a lot of people, I know I've been, in the past, I didn't realize how important it was to process this, get through it, and come out on the other side. But
Yeah.
you dive right back, you go right back to where you were. Or a lot of people will leave. I mentioned this before. They will leave the certain individual or the organization, and they move on to another individual with the same person or a similar organization.
Yes.
There really was no changes. They just went back to what's familiar.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you see that a lot of times, even with domestic violence, that
Yes.
somebody will end up in another domestic violence situation. And I've talked about it in the past too, how sometimes we'll even create chaos because that's what was so comfortable. Not that and it's not like comfortable as in like a cozy slipper and robe on a Sunday, not that kind of comfort, but that's what our nervous system gets used to.
Yes.
And when things are quiet and boring and not toxic in certain ways, then our body's like, I don't know what to do with this. And it's
Exactly. Yes. It's to sit with to realize what your body is telling you, whether it's fear or grief, is actually kind of a new thing. To realize what our body is telling ourselves. And I don't like being in fear. Yeah. And grief is not always, it's just not a good time. I don't want to stay in it. I want to do something to relieve these things. So to be willing to be in them takes some courage. And actually, if you understand what's going on, you won't react, but you'll choose how you're going to do things next. And grief will show up even later in life, just out of the blue. It's not like you can grieve once or you're just going to get scared once. It'll just show up and you don't know why. So, yeah.
So were these kind of like new thoughts to you tonight? The way that we presented
it? I'm familiar with this fear and grieving, but I haven't, what wasn't familiar is how to view what my actions are going to be next. What to call that?
Yeah.
So like I'll talk about it's normal to grieve and it's normal to feel fear, but I haven't talked about, take a look at it and decide what the best choice is for you, what's in your best interest. Because if we have an elder in our ear or a mother in our ear or our exes in our ear, they're going to encourage us to do what's in their best interest. So we have to build more confidence in our own choices. And we can make the wrong choices a few times until, we got to get those negative consequences and get the good consequences from our good choices. So that's how we build our wisdom, right?
Absolutely. And our self-trust. Ultimately, it's like being able to trust in ourselves. That's like the biggest thing that we need to build up.
Absolutely.
Because then even if we do make a mistake, we're going to look at it differently. If we trust ourselves and make a choice that maybe wasn't the best one, we're not going to be as apt to like be beating ourselves up for it.
Yes.
We're going to look for the lessons.
Yes, exactly. So when we do make bad choices, it doesn't mean we've lost good choices. We still have made good choices.
Yep.
It doesn't erase any of them. And
Yep.
the more we heal, the more good choices we're going to make. And then the less bad choices is how we hope it's going to go.
Yeah. I think too, the other thing, like with that sense of pulling, we're going to have that sense of pulling to get pulled back. And whether it's to a relationship, whether it's to an organization, whatever, we're going to have those. But being able to recognize what's happening can help us also to make a different choice, make the choice that's right for us.
You know what I was just... Go ahead, John.
I was going to say what we're doing here. That's why what we're doing here is so important, is to bring awareness. And it's a natural response to want to go back. What comes to mind is like, especially for younger people, teenagers that might be getting shunned, or all everything we talked about tonight, the feeling of being pulled back into everything they've ever known is totally understandable, but almost impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as we're being pulled, we're not going to be thinking about the abuse we received. We're going to be thinking about the time that we received love and peace and enjoyableness, So, and there was those things, but then it came with also some oppression. But that's not what we're thinking when we're in fear or in grief. I don't think that shows up as much. We kind of have to remind ourselves.
Yeah.
We talked about fear and grief tonight not showing up as that. It doesn't show up with a name tag, right? And neither does control. Control doesn't show up as, hey, I'm here to control everything that you do, think, and feel, what you wear, and whatever it is. It shows up as safety, answers to your questions, answers to your grief and sorrow. But then
they must have our best interest in mind. Yes.
Yeah. And then it starts showing up later on as if I question this, am I wrong? And what and all that. So yeah.
But you know what? We can be wrong a few times, and let's just not get stuck in the guilt of feeling wrong or the fear of feeling wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to laugh at this because it's just so familiar to me. And to be drawn to these things makes sense to me too, because they're just so familiar to me. That's why we are drawn and pulled to go back to what's familiar. What we're heading towards is unfamiliar territory in our healing journey, right? So yeah. But the more we do these things that are unfamiliar, they will become our own familiar, and we will become more confident.
Yep,
in our decisions.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. Any other thoughts?
Not that I can think of, which is odd, right?
Not at all. That means that we satisfied you, right? We satisfied your hunger.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, appreciate you, Linda. Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Oops, I accidentally hung up on her. Sorry, Linda. Sorry, Linda. I didn't mean to hang up on you too soon. Please forgive me. So, like we said, we continue the conversation after the show, and we have a Facebook group called the Exit Generation, and this is part of our movement. We have an Exit Generation movement, and we take the topic that we covered tonight, and we have these four or five questions that we open up and kind of do around the table to get your guys' thoughts on it and what this meant to you. So it's not more content by any means. This is where we learn how to apply this and what these things mean to us. And we take a look at it from a different lens in our own lives. And so, go ahead.
And I just wanted to add, we got a few questions in there. Recognizing, when you're being pulled back, what's driving it, what's choosing, and what choosing, being able to move forward actually looks like for you.
Yep. So we do this every week. You'll see this. So if you aren't part of the Exit Generation Facebook group, I will post a link to it at the bottom of this video. And then also you can search for us in Facebook. Just search for the Exit Generation. And we'd love to have you join us there. We've had some great conversations these last few weeks.
And it's every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. And you'll see familiar faces in there too.
Yeah.
So, so next week, go ahead. Sorry, Johnny.
Next week, see
what's coming up next week.
People, if you felt it this week, pull that back and forth, tug that makes you second guess and kind of stall, and that's real, and it's not the end of it.
Yeah, we're going to be revisiting one of the patterns that we've seen over and over. We've talked about it a couple of times in some of the things that we've shared, and this is something that we've seen often with people that have left high control systems. It can sneak in and feel personal, and it may even feel like failure at times, but it isn't. It's actually a pattern, and we're going to take a look at fade from a different angle.
And fade, F-A-D-E, shows up as fatigue, aimlessness, and ego armor. So we're going to show you how to spot it early on. And when you can actually recognize that without judging yourself, you can tend to yourself and take care of it. So you get the rest on purpose. You can simplify your day, and you can ask for help. Speak to yourself with the same kindness that you'd give to a dear friend. So next week we'll dive into this idea of fade in plain language, that so you can catch it early and kind of soften around it. Take gentle, honest care of you instead of thinking, just how to power through it without processing.
Yeah. So John made the comment, fade from the organization. So we're actually going to take a look at fade from a different perspective, from this framework of fatigue and aimlessness and discouragement and that ego armor. And so that's why we've got that title of the fade after fading. So the fading in that title has to do with fading from the organization. This fade is is just a little bit different perspective, so that you can kind of understand, so get recognize that what, especially when you first leave the organization, some of the things that your body can go through, that it's not, you're not a failure, that it's understandable that you would be experiencing some of these things. So we're going to talk about that next week. So make sure that you're subscribed and hit that like button and the notification button so that you're not going to miss it. And also please tell others if you think that this would be a benefit for their a beneficial topic for them. I know Linda announces this, I think, almost every week on her show, which we appreciate that so much.
Oh,
Yeah. So we want to leave you with this thought and this idea. You're not a prisoner of your past. You're the builder of your future.
so just take a breath with that, sit with it. Feel it. And see it.
Own it, integrate it, put it throughout your whole entire body. You're not a prisoner anymore.
So, all right, that's what we've got for you tonight. Hope you got something out of that. Share it with all your friends.
And thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
And again, just please like and subscribe. Hit that notification button.
Yep.
I
And
guess we can't.
go ahead.
I guess we can't say that enough.
No, we can't. We can't. So, and if you want to keep working with us, please come join us in the Exit Generation. Gives us an opportunity also to get to know you guys better, and we're not, we don't have the spotlight, so we can be a little bit more comfortable and stuff. So we will see you guys next time.
Appreciate you so much. Bye-bye for now.
All right. Bye.